Have you ever wondered why? In a wealthy country like the United States, the very heart of modern medicine, the birth rate has dropped to a historic low? And why more and more women are choosing to walk away from motherhood? Something long considered the most sacred of human instincts? Picture a quiet night in suburban Ohio. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. Inside a small apartment, Teresa, a young mother, sits on an old sofa. Beside her, little Theo, her son who has autism, tosses restlessly, unable to sleep. Teresa's eyes are darkened with exhaustion. Her head rests heavily in her hands. Her gaze vacant. A storm of thoughts races through her mind. Where did I go wrong? Will tomorrow be worse than today? How do I escape this crushing sense of helplessness? This is not a rare scene. In fact, it is repeated in millions of American households every single night. Mothers, rich or poor, white or black or Latina, educated or not, are all living under unbearable pressure. They are not only struggling with childcare, but also grappling with profound loneliness, exhaustion, and a lack of meaningful social support. A large-scale study analyzing data from nearly 200,000 mothers revealed a sobering truth. In just 7 years, the percentage of women who rated their mental health as very good dropped from 38% to only 26%. Meanwhile, the number of mothers who described their mental health as fair or poor nearly doubled. These dry statistics are not just numbers. Behind them are sleepless nights that stretch endlessly, tears shed in silence, and the suffocating feeling of being trapped in motherhood without enough sharing, support, or relief. When a mother breaks down mentally, the impact extends far beyond herself. It touches her child, and, ultimately, echoes across an entire generation. So, what has turned the United States, a country of immense wealth and resources, into a place where motherhood has become such a crushing burden for so many women? More importantly, what can be done to change this reality? In today's journey, we will uncover the bigger picture of this silent crisis. We will hear raw, real stories from mothers themselves. We will explore scientific research on the brain and postpartum psychology. And we will reflect on potential solutions, so that mothers do not merely survive, but can truly thrive and find joy in the journey of raising their children. Teresa's story is just the beginning. There is so much more beneath the surface, waiting to be uncovered. So stay with us until the very end of this video, because together, we can not only understand the depth of this issue but also draw out lessons that have the power to change lives. After hearing Teresa's story, many of you might be wondering, why does something as sacred and joyful as motherhood sometimes turn into such a crushing mental burden? The truth is, it's the collision of two forces: the massive biological changes inside a mother's body, and the heavy social pressures outside. When these collide, they create a spiral that drags countless women into postpartum depression and chronic stress. Let's break it down. From a medical perspective, postpartum depression is not rare at all. According to the CDC, 1 in 10 mothers in the US will experience it. What's even scarier, many cases go undiagnosed, unnoticed, or untreated. Here's what actually happens inside the body. Right after birth, 2 crucial hormones, estrogen and progesterone, drop like a cliff within just a few days. This sudden crash wreaks havoc on the brain's emotional centers, especially the hippocampus and amygdala. And when hormones are off balance, neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine, your brain's happiness and motivation chemicals, don't function properly. That's when sadness, anxiety, insomnia, and hopelessness start to creep in. So no, it's not weakness. It's biology. It's science. Postpartum depression is a real medical condition with measurable changes in the brain. And then, there's sleep, or rather, the lack of it. Remember Teresa at 3 a.m.? For many mothers, months go by without a single night of deep, uninterrupted sleep. That broken sleep drives cortisol, the stress hormone, through the roof. And when cortisol stays high too long, the body tips into chronic stress, crushing fatigue, weakened immunity, heart strain, even memory and focus problems. That constant exhaustion, so many moms describe? It's not just being tired, it's the body breaking down under nonstop stress. Now, biology is only half the story. The other half? Society. In the US, maternity leave is shockingly short, sometimes just weeks, before a mom is expected to return to work. Compare that to countries in Northern Europe, where paid parental leave lasts months, even years. American moms are often forced to juggle work and motherhood while still bleeding, still healing, still emotionally raw. And let's talk about culture. Independence is celebrated in America, but for new moms, it often means isolation. No grandparents nearby, no big family to lean on. Just the mom and the baby, alone. And if the baby has colic, health issues, or simply cries nonstop, that pressure multiplies fast. Take Sarah, a young mother I once met in New York. At first, she was excited about motherhood. But weeks in, she couldn't sleep. She cried constantly, and she felt she was failing as a mom. She hid it, terrified of being judged as weak. By the time her family realized something was wrong, she had stopped eating, stopped caring, and couldn't even hold her baby. That's how invisible and devastating postpartum depression can be if ignored. And it's not just moms who suffer. Research shows that babies of depressed mothers often receive less interaction, fewer smiles, fewer cuddles. That lack of connection in the first years can shape a child's emotional development forever. Studies from Columbia University even reveal that children of mothers with untreated depression face higher risks of behavioral issues and learning difficulties later on. So here's the big picture. Postpartum depression and chronic stress aren't just personal struggles. They're a public health issue. They're not just about hormones in the brain, they're about maternity leave, about healthcare, about culture, about family support, and solving them will take more than just be stronger or just take some medicine. It requires compassion, science, policy change, and above all, it requires us to listen, to believe mothers, and to walk with them through one of the most fragile chapters of their lives. But if we only look at hormones and sleep, it's still not enough to explain why this condition is so widespread in America. Behind the loneliness of these mothers lies a much larger social picture, where economics, culture, and policies all come together to create an invisible weight pressing down on women after childbirth. First, let's talk about the economy. The United States is one of the few developed countries without a nationwide paid maternity leave policy. The length of leave depends on the state or the company, and some mothers are forced to return to work after just a few weeks. Imagine this: a body that has just endured the pain of a C-section or a difficult birth, still bleeding and healing, and yet after only a month, it has to sit in front of a computer screen for 8 hours a day, while still waking up at night to feed the baby. This isn't a choice, it's survival. Because if she takes more time off, she risks losing her job, her income, and with it, the ability to pay for rent, formula, or medical care. The story of a mother named Laura in California has haunted me. Laura worked as a waitress, had no health insurance, and was granted only 2 weeks of leave. When she returned to her job, her body still ached and her mind was exhausted. But if she didn't work, she couldn't afford formula for her baby. She admitted that she once carried trays of food while secretly enduring severe post-birth abdominal cramps. And in her most desperate moments, a terrifying thought would creep in, leaving her baby behind. Beyond the economic burden is culture. Americans have long been taught to be strong, independent, to stand on their own 2 feet. For mothers, this often means they hesitate to seek help, fearing others will judge them as not good enough or unable to care for their child. As a result, many women choose silence, forcing themselves to endure until depression grows too heavy to hide. The supermom culture, glorified in movies, commercials, and social media, paints mothers as beautiful, successful, effortlessly balancing career and childcare. That perfect image becomes a crushing weight for real mothers, who are often just surviving on tears and sleepless nights. Social isolation makes things even worse. Unlike many Asian countries where extended families often live together and new mothers receive support from parents or relatives, American families tend to live separately. A mother may spend the entire day at home alone with her baby, with no one to talk to, no one to share the burden, and when she needs childcare in order to rest or return to work, the cost of daycare or a nanny is often unbearably high, pushing her further into despair. Picture a mother living in the suburbs. Her husband works all day, and she is at home with the baby. The baby cries endlessly. She hasn't had time to shower or eat, and her phone keeps showing those perfect Instagram photos of other moms. That silent comparison chips away at her confidence, making her feel guilty, like a failure. It's a vicious cycle that's hard to escape. And then there's the healthcare system. Mental health care in America comes with many challenges: high costs, limited insurance coverage, and overloaded therapists whose appointments can take weeks to schedule. Postpartum depression, however, is something that demands early intervention. Any delay means the illness worsens, lasts longer, and takes a heavier toll on both mother and child. All of these social, economic, and cultural pressures, layered on top of biological changes after childbirth, create an invisible cage. A mother feels trapped inside, desperate to escape, but not knowing where to begin. And worst of all, she often feels like no one truly understands her, or is there to reach out a helping hand. The most frightening part isn't just the tears in the weeks after giving birth. It's the silent, long-lasting consequences that can stretch on for years if postpartum depression and chronic stress go undetected and untreated. Physical wounds may heal, but the wounds of the soul, if neglected, can leave deep scars, not only on the mother, but also on the child. A long-term study at Johns Hopkins University followed more than 800 mothers over 5 years. The results showed that women who suffered postpartum depression without treatment were 3 times more likely to relapse compared to others. They often lost interest in work, withdrew from friends, and even faced broken marriages. A mother in that state no longer has enough energy to care for herself, let alone her child. For children, the consequences are even more subtle and enduring. Scientists have shown that children raised by mothers with untreated depression often experience impaired brain development and difficulties regulating emotions. A child who constantly witnesses a sad, emotionally detached mother gradually develops insecurity and struggles to trust others later in life. I will never forget the story of Jessica, a mother in Texas. She suffered postpartum depression but assumed it was just normal exhaustion and tried to endure it. For the first 2 years of her daughter's life, Jessica rarely smiled or spoke with her. By age 4, doctors discovered her daughter had delayed language development and early signs of anxiety. Jessica broke down in tears when the doctor explained that the lack of emotional bonding during those early years was the main cause. She blamed herself deeply, but by then, it was too late to go back. Physically, mothers with chronic stress often have persistently high cortisol levels, which increases their risk of heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and immune disorders. This means that not only their mental health, but their physical health, is slowly eroded. For children, if during the first 1,000 days of life, the golden window for brain development, they lack warm interaction from their mothers, the impact can last a lifetime. A Harvard study found that children of mothers with untreated depression are more likely to struggle with concentration, perform poorly in school, and, as adults, face a higher risk of depression and anxiety disorders. The saddest part is that many mothers believe they are simply trying to endure a little longer. In reality, every day of silent suffering pulls both mother and child further away from the chance to live healthy and happy lives. And once that cycle takes root, healing becomes far more difficult. That is why it is not enough to simply help mothers through the postpartum stage. We must also prevent the invisible wounds that can affect an entire generation. If the earlier chapters painted a dark picture of postpartum depression and chronic stress, this is where the light begins to shine. The truth is, science today offers many tools, and mothers themselves can build personal strategies to gradually step out of the shadows. First, science has confirmed that early treatment is the key. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, has been proven as one of the most effective treatments for postpartum depression. Doctors at Mayo Clinic reported that more than 70% of women who joined CBT sessions for just 3 months showed significant improvement. This isn't just talking, as some people believe. It's a structured process that helps mothers recognize negative thoughts and change the way they respond to them. At the same time, joining postpartum support groups can bring unexpected strength. A study from the University of Michigan found that mothers who attended weekly group sessions recovered twice as fast as those who only received individual treatment. This reflects a deeply human need to be heard, to be understood, and to know that one is not alone. Beyond therapy, Modern medicine now provides safe antidepressant options for mothers, even while breastfeeding. What's important is that doctors personalize the treatment to protect the baby. Experts emphasize this message: don't hesitate to seek medical help, because the brain and body deserve support just like with any other illness. Alongside medical care, personal strategies are just as vital. Sometimes, small daily habits become the pillars that keep mothers steady. For example, Harvard researchers found that mothers who maintained 20 to 30 minutes of light exercise each day, such as brisk walking or yoga, experienced a marked reduction in depression within 6 weeks. Physical activity not only boosts endorphins but also restores a sense of control over one's own body. Another strategy is practicing mindfulness. In California, a pilot program offered mindfulness meditation to over 200 new mothers. After just 8 weeks, participants reported a 40% reduction in anxiety and significantly better sleep. This shows that dedicating just a few minutes each day to breathing and being present can calm the storm within the mind. Take the story of Sarah, a single mother in New York. She once endured severe postpartum depression. Instead of staying silent, she joined a community support group and practiced yoga every morning. At first, she admitted she didn't believe it would help. But after 3 months, Sarah felt the light return. She smiled more, bonded more deeply with her child, and eventually became a volunteer to support other mothers, a living proof that recovery isn't only possible, but can spark a ripple of hope. Finally, sustainable recovery cannot happen without family and social support. Studies consistently show that a husband's help with housework, understanding from parents, and encouragement from friends form the strongest shield for mothers. This isn't only an individual responsibility, it's a community responsibility. The most important message is this: postpartum depression and chronic stress are not a life sentence. With the support of science, personal habits, and the embrace of family and society, mothers can step out of the darkness and rediscover themselves. Looking back on the entire journey we've just walked through together, many of you may feel a heaviness in your heart, because postpartum depression, chronic stress, or the silent wounds inside American mothers are not just numbers or scientific reports. They are real tears shed in the middle of the night, quiet sighs hidden behind closed doors, and the desperate moments when a woman asks herself, "Do I have the strength to go on?" But even in those darkest moments, science, community, and the inner strength of human beings give us hope. We've seen that therapy can reshape thought patterns, that healthy habits can nurture resilience, and that the love of family and society can be the strongest anchor. Every mother has the capacity to recover, and the journey of overcoming postpartum depression is not only about rediscovering herself but also about leaving behind a legacy of resilience for her children. The stories of Sarah, Jessica, and millions of other mothers teach us a simple yet profound lesson: no one should walk through this storm alone. Sometimes, a timely hug, a sincere question, or even a phone call from a friend can be the lifeline that pulls them out of the abyss. And if you are a mother going through this, remember, seeking help is not a sign of weakness, it is a testament to courage. The final message I want to leave with you is this: a mother's mental health is the foundation of her family and the future of her children. When we care for a mother, we are caring for an entire generation. Never underestimate the power of empathy and genuine care. So, I want to call on you, whether you are a father, a friend, a colleague, or simply a stranger, please offer a little attention, a little love, to the mothers around you. Because sometimes, you might be the small light that rekindles their world. Let's not end this journey here, but let it be the beginning of real change, a world where mothers no longer suffer in silence, where mental health is valued as much as physical health, and where compassion becomes the strongest medicine of all. If you've made it this far, I truly want to tell you, you are not alone. If this video resonates with you, please like it, share it with a friend who needs to hear this, and leave a comment so we can talk together. And don't forget to subscribe, because sometimes, even a small message of care is enough to make someone feel much lighter.